And how long have you been playing AOE for?
AOE 4 I've played for continuously 2 months, I guess. I think that the most difficulty in this specific game in AOE 4 is basically that the extra resources, the stone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that this is the. I think that getting eco fast uh, as a Byzantine player is basically the problem because there are a lot of players that are going to counter me with Feudal Rush, and as a Byzantine player, I need to go to Fast Castle. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to manage both eco gathering and also defend the rushes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that's gonna be the key skill of Byzantine, right? The ability to. Sorry, give me 1 second. My daughter's crying. My wife's grabbing her real
It's fine.
fast. um, yeah, that's the key component because if you can reach castle, um, you are going to be in a really good spot as Byzantine. The thing I want to emphasize to you though is Byzantine has this great ability to continue to fight and still go reach castle. So what I don't want you to think is you have to get to castle as fast as possible. For most civs, you can actually make units stick around and fight and still get to castle pretty organically, and be okay. So
Okay.
one thing I see when people decide I'm going to fast castle in their mind, it means I got to get to castle as soon as possible. It's okay to make units. It's okay to fight, but the goal is you're trying to find that opening to reach castle. And if you set up your farms well, if you set up your defenses well, you will get there. You just need to buy yourself some time. Um,
Okay. Just to make notice that the build that is currently played by me
mhm.
is uh, is the new Beastie
Yeah,
Byzantine player with an immediate farm
no,
as soon as as soon as I start a game.
it is a good build. It is a good build. Um,
Yeah, I
so
know.
I have no qualms with the build. It's more about and this is the issue of any build order is once we have to actually adjust to what the opponent is doing, that's where things start to get tough. Um,
Yes.
and so your games, your losses I looked at are a mix of either struggling against the feudal pressure or when you do get to castle, how do you react to what you're seeing from your opponent? So my upfront advice is going to be one, scouting. How often are you using your scout? How often are you checking what your opponent's doing and reacting to that?
Okay.
You often do a very good initial scout. By that I mean your first around, you check what your opponent's doing, you check their resources, but then you don't check again, which causes you to
Yes.
sometimes be surprised by what they end up doing to you. Um,
Yeah, I understand.
a second thing is if you see an opportunity, you need to try to go for it. I.e., like send units to pressure a resource or go attack when you actually have that advantage early on, which will come from if you're scouting better. If you're scouting better, you'll see times where you have an advantage and then you can try to take advantage of it. Um, and then the third thing is going to be the use of your resources. A lot of the times I see you keeping a lot of extra resources or not spending them as you should. I think if you start doing that, you'll have a lot more success. But let's start off against this English player first, as an example of being of a feudal rush. Um, so first of all, I love your placement of the cistern. Gets your front berries and your front gold. But whenever we open up against an opponent, we have to ask ourselves, what do we need to be expecting? Against an English player, what are you probably expecting?
At this current season, I noticed that a lot of English players are doing the Kings
Mm-hmm.
unit, and also as an English player that I've seen on the last seasons, I noticed that they are going on bulking with longbows, and then they try to harass me on a specific resource.
Yes, exactly. Um, so here's the thing: if they open up doing the king with two TC, I think it's actually great for you. Byzantines, if you can get your olive grove set up and you have your grand winery, you're actually doing pretty good when it comes to resources and can kind of hold up against 2TC. Late game, potentially not, but at least middle, early to middle, you'll do okay. And it's generally less pressure. If they do the king, you can just make a couple spearmen and you'll be fine. And you're just watching for if they decide to make more units or not. And that's the key. If you're ever going to do this kind of like boom style where I'm making farms, I'm going fast castle, the scouting has to be on point, because if you don't catch your opponent sending more units, it could be really bad for you. I liken it to if someone tries to do a 2TC China style, you have to scout very well, because if they're making lots of units, you have to make units. If they're not, you need to rush castle. A lot of what you do is dependent on what your opponent is doing. Same style here. You set the tempo when you get to castle. You get a lot of mercenaries, you can make a lot of units, you set the tempo then. But until that point, you are scouting to check, do I need to make more units? Can I just focus on castle? Like, what am I doing is based on that. If they longbow rush you, it's really important that you're checking and getting to the opponent by feudal, so you can check to see, because if they're going to longbow rush you, your focus has to change. So for knight, you have to make spearmen and just kind of hold. If they do longbow, what do you think the move is?
I think that I need maybe to make a specific mercenary like the javelin, and maybe
Exactly.
use horses.
So if you're faced off against, if they try to push you with longbows, you need to immediately go javelin throwers. And I would suggest getting a tower that's like a zoning tower. So here's the thing. The longbow's range is so good that they can kind of work their way around a tower. But if the way you place that tower buys you a little bit of space. So for example, on this gold mine, if you tower here, they have to walk all the way around to shoot. And by the time it takes them to get around and get there, you can get that first mercenary out. And those first set of javelin throwers can do so much work. Same thing with the winery. One, I'd always make sure the winery is shading more towards your TC.
Okay.
I think you place it here because I think you're like, it gets me the most coverage. But I would have rather liked it right here, because you want that safe pocket between the TC and the winery that the
I
TC can
understand.
cover. Cool.
Okay.
But the scouting and catching what he's opening with changes your gameplay completely. Because if he does a happy opening, you're dropping a barracks, you're getting a few Limitané out. Of course, you want to drop your mercenaries too and start making them. But you don't have to worry as much. You just need to get a couple spearmen out and just scout the king. If they're doing longbow rush, that changes how you react to it. So that's why that early scouting against your opponents is so important. You
I
then
have
start.
another question about the scout.
Mhm.
Should I send the scout directly to the opponent, or should I need to scout my environment to find more ships? And
I think this initial scouting you did is correct, where you're inherently the more defensive player. So
okay,
you want more sheep, right? The more sheep you have, the more you can delay. You want to add olive groves as fast as possible, but more sheep means you can survive longer without having to leave your base. So
yes,
it's okay to focus on doing the scouting on your half of the map first. The goal should be, as you start to age up, you are running over towards their base. Like, you need to see what he's doing by the time you age up, because what they're doing will determine what you need to do. So this scouting pattern is pretty good. I just want to make sure you need to be beelining. I wouldn't worry about the corners as much in this case. The second you you get your side cleared, you are rushing towards the opponent's base to
okay,
see the what they're going for. For some opponents, it doesn't matter as much. Like French will always go for the knight.
that is cool. Yes,
Yeah. Delhi will almost always do Tower of Victory. I like some are very predictable and you almost don't need to look because you know what they're gonna do. But for English, with both openings being very good, you need to look. And this is where the first problem comes. You actually don't know what he's opening with. He's
yes,
opening with Abbey of Kings. So that means we need spearmen right now. I would actually focus on getting the barracks up as soon as possible.
okay. So this is another problem. Um, Now you said that I need to get spearmen as quick as possible, but in the beastie build, I think that it's more general, but it says to make upgrades and build more farms, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not like what you're about told me to do, just
Yes.
to place the barracks and prepare for battle.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I said it is because very high level players like BC or anyone I would say within High Conqueror can get
Okay,
away with being a little bit more greedy on upgrades.
okay,
They can delay it. They can track the king. They can use the Arcatoid defense and kind of delay. I would rather you play more on the safe side. Um, it is okay to change the build a little bit depending on what you need, and I think you'd be in a much more setup if you make a barracks to start making spearmen just to hold one of these areas.
Okay.
Your other option is to do horsemen if you want, but to me the just a couple spearmen here and a few spearmen on the wood line just ensures that he's not getting free villager kills and slowing you down. One thing you can do is once you scout the king, you follow the king with your scout. If you follow the king with your scout, all you need to do is make a couple spearmen and move them as the king comes near. But for example, it doesn't mean you don't get any upgrades. Like getting this weirbow and getting the housing vision is fine because you're about to get enough wood to get a barracks, and you can drop it and then using the cistern make a couple spearmen. By the time his king gets here, like you're still okay. The only change is that I would have potentially put the house here or here because you really want the vision if he's gonna try to dive you. Like this house is great because you will see the king as he's running up. And there's little other things you can do. You could drop a little wall here and here so he can't run around behind. Like ask yourself, are there things I can do to increase my chance of success? A little wall in the back helps. And doing those sort of things just make sure, because what you don't want is, even if he doesn't kill any villagers, but he keeps making your villagers have to run backwards, you're losing out on resources. So this house right here, great, beautiful. The wheelbarrow, very important. But this is already what I mean by you're already starting to stack resources. You're at 265 wood. We need to already be using that wood.
Okay.
It should be like as much as possible. You're adding olive grove by olive grove. So at this point with 260 wood, I am adding a barracks and I'm adding an olive grove. And I'm queuing up 2 spearmen. But what's going to make this build a lot more efficient for you is never letting your wood sit. How much this is going to be successful for you is how often you are not letting your wood just build up. Because every olive grove you add is going to be more olive oil. And the first set of mercenaries you get out are really, really important. So you see the king, he's chasing your scout, which is actually very, very good. You basically want to keep your eye on the king as much as possible. He starts to run away. At this point, what I'd want you to check is he going to be aggressive? What's his plan? Because usually when they open Abbey, they do 2 TC. So what I would have really liked you to have done is once you track where the king's going, you run back and you check stone. He's actually not on stone. And what you would have noticed if you came up and around is that he's rushing castle. And we can tell he's rushing castle because he has 8 on gold. And he's making no units.
So he's trying to harass me with the king and at the same time reach castle.
Yes. And what he did was actually purposeful. The reason he chased your scout away is that he didn't want you to see he was rushing castle. He wanted it to be a surprise. Because really he should have dove your base. He should have ignored your scout and dove your base, but he chased your scout away. So if he's chasing your scout, that's actually a question. Why does he not want me to see what's happening? You know what I mean?
Yes.
The key thing is if you see the Abbey and you see the king pop out, you need to go check stone. And if as you were running around the outside, you'd have seen, oh my gosh, he has 8 on gold. That's not right. How does that change what you're doing? What that changes is you're now in I need to get his castle as fast as possible mode. So what I would have done if I was you is I would have pulled all these villagers and put them on the berries. I would have pulled half my villagers off.
So you said no villagers on wood?
Yeah, I would have pulled almost all my villagers off wood. I would have left like 3.
Okay.
And I would put the rest, I just sent them into food immediately. Because at this point, you have to get to castle very quickly. And then I would have built a couple more limited A, because usually when they're doing this sort of rush castle, it's either a white tower rush or it's they're gonna rush with knights.
Okay.
So we still haven't seen what he's doing, and this is where the scouting really comes into play. You haven't seen stone, gold, nothing. So you're flying in the dark here. He might have added an archery range, and his longbow is coming right now. He might have like the lack of knowledge is what's really hurting you here. And once again, we have all this wood sitting here we could be using. You could have dropped a bunch of olive groves with these extra villagers if you had known he was going castle. And so that's why I'm just overemphasizing the importance of scouting cannot be understated. Tower here is good, but you're still floating so much wood. Now we're dropping our first mercenary camp, which is great. You want to definitely get out a set of javelin throwers, and even if he's not like attacking, having them to poke is really nice. So he runs into this white tower. What do we do here?
Okay, so at the specific moment, I tried to counter his king, and I didn't notice that he's building this white tower on me. So I think that making Akritoy and then trying to kill as much villagers.
Yes. So here's the thing: the lack of scouting is what kills this.
Yes.
Did you watch all the BC videos about the White Tower rush?
Yes, I watched. Yes.
So
I tried to counter the king with the spearmen.
But I mean, the thing that got you was that you never saw gold, because if you went and saw gold, you'd have seen that's a lot on gold, and then you could have gone, he might be White Tower rushing me, and then you just keep your scout here, and if he rushes across with all his villagers, all you got to do is pull all your villagers, do Akritoy, and bring over your Limitine, and just kill his villagers.
Yes.
And then if you get the first set of javelin throwers out, he loses. Like they start picking off villagers, he can't drop it, he's fine. But he does drop it. So the second he starts it, you're not stopping it at this point. Like, you needed to stop him as he was running in. So you just need to transfer everything over. So all these villagers go here for wood. All these villagers go over here. And you want to get on like the food and everything back here. And now you're rushing castle. I would cancel these two production buildings because it's within the White Tower range. But basically the idea is once he starts making the White Tower, everything just moves over here.
Okay.
If you can get to castle, you'll actually be okay, because he's pretty behind at this point economically wise. He put everything into this White Tower. Yes. All you need to do is get over here, get to castle, start making mercenaries. You can set up you can start set up more farms around here, and then you're just making knights and siege. But you just abandon everything at this point. You just need to get out of here. You try and see how effective that would have been if you had seen that earlier.
Yes, it was too late.
So this game is just a beautiful example of scouting. Of how scouting is really the thing that sets us up for success, especially if you're doing anything greedy. It's what ensures that you'll actually survive and make the right decisions in the moment. Next one I wanted to look at was this game against HRE.
Okay.
Do you remember this game?
As soon as I will start to watch the replay, I will remember.
Okay.
But I've watched everything.
Good. Watching the replays is very, very helpful. The big thing on this one is we have an HRE player that doesn't really rush castle, which is weird. But you're doing your opening build. This one, I think, is going to be a great emphasis on how much not doing something helps your opponent. As much as possible, we don't want to let our opponents sit there and just kind of do whatever they want. As Byzantine, it's actually okay for you, because if you set up, you're generally going to win. But as much as possible, we want to be checking our opponent and taking advantage of openings when we see them. So a big part of this game is going to be how you kind of just sit back and let things happen, as well as not setting yourself up for success. So you set up your winery. I love this position on the winery. I think the one thing you could have done is moved it over a little bit so you could fit 2 farms here, but that's very minor. You scout around, you get a full 360 of his base, which is really important. He goes mine work, and this is your first tip here. What landmark does HRE usually go?
I know that they have Arcan Chapel. It's more economic, and the mine rack is like a smith. so it can get upgrades and maybe trying to rush me.
Yes. Boom. So that's the thing immediately. The second you saw that, you should have gone, oh, he's rushing me.
Okay.
And you, the second you drop your sheep off, you come back up here and you're sitting here at the front of his base because you got to see what's he doing.
Okay.
Because he's either the mine work means one of two things. He's either rushing you in feudal, or he's going to rush castle for burger. He's going to Burgrave rush you.
Okay.
But we have to be here watching it is the key. You got a really good piece of info here, and then we're not following up on this. You set up. That means that you definitely want to make units. Just in case he pushes, and you want to be soft rushing castle. By soft rushing, I mean you're still making units, you're still setting everything up, but your goal is to get to castle because you need crossbows and you need your own men at arms. It's going to be the key here.
Okay.
So you're setting up, good cistern placements. Love it. Good house setup. You're getting your eco upgrades. And this HRE is a great civ for you to really use your mercenaries in an offensive way. Getting longbows and pushing his gold or just any resource to slow him down to be really important. Especially if you came over here and saw this outpost. What's the issue with this outpost?
It's a back outpost, so I can snipe him with the longbows.
Yeah, a group of longbows here shut down his gold completely.
Yes.
So that's what I mean for looking for an opportunity. Your mercenaries are not free, but they really are. Like, you're getting olive oil from just gathering food. So go use them. Like, it's okay to rush up your first set of mercenaries, go out and see what damage you can do. If he makes units, your first group of longbows will kill most things he makes in small numbers. So, like, it's okay, especially on these small maps, to search and see an opening. Oh, his gold's wide open. I'm going to make a set of longbows and go pressure him. Because pressuring him first buys you time to castle. A very common way of fast castling is making a couple units to distract your opponent and slow them down. Because this tower ain't it. So you're doing... You also see the barracks drop, which is interesting, which should tell you he's going for units. And then you keep doing another circle. I don't think you need another circle. I would have just sat here. At this point, this is what you need to look at. How many units is he making? How hard is he on gold? That's what we need to be paying attention to.
Okay.
And how would I know that? I'm looking for the thing I need to react to. It's those units, so I'm going to watch. Because if he starts spamming units, I need to make units. If he's not making units, then he's rushing castle. You see the difference?
Yes.
And so it's always asking ourselves, what am I seeing? What do I need to react? How do I need to change my tactic? So your longbows, I am a bigger fan of early on having all your villagers harvesting from these initial berries.
Okay, so putting 4 on the ships and then the rest go to the berries?
Yes, because if you had been on berries from the jump, you could get your first set of longbow right now.
Okay.
Which is really nice tempo to get to rush up the first set of mercenaries. So you'll often see high level biz players go really heavy on the berries early, and then once they get pressured, they walk off. Because you want to save the sheep for when you're in danger. If you can be on the berries safely, be on the berries. If we look at your resources, we once again see this resource glut. You have 600 wood that you're not using. That could be a tower. That could be more olive groves. If you want to rush castle and be safe, you could drop walls. Here, and here. Like, use your resources. That's the thing that's really holding you back here. You could have way more olive groves. You could be dropping more production, but we're just not using our resources. It's fine to hold on to gold and food because you're trying to get to castle, but if you have all this wood, use it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So as much as possible, we're going through a cycle here of where you're checking your scouting, you're going back to base. Am I making villagers? I am making villagers. Good. Am I making units? I just built my first production building. And then you check your resources and you go, ask yourself, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to go castle. I have a lot of wood. Well, part of my build is adding olive groves. So I'm going to grab a group of villagers. I'm going to add a bunch of olive groves because I have the wood. And the mindset should always be, I'm using my resources. Unless there's a specific reason I'm gathering it and holding onto it, I'm using my resources. Okay?
Yes.
Cool. And then this is where the scouting gets you. You see he goes stone, which I would assume is actually him upgrading the tower. You bring your scout around again, and you see these spearmen, and it's like, okay, He's not that heavy on gold. He's making some units. You run away. And this is great information. A group of longbows slaughter those spearmen. It's not even close. You start making your longbows, but that was a real opportunity there, potentially, if you wanted it. But he's also not being aggressive, so I understand wanting to rush castle. We just really need to be going for it. You have a lot of wood. Let's spend the wood. If you don't need that much wood anymore, get on sheep or berries.
Production buildings.
Say again?
Production buildings, maybe.
Yes, and that's actually the one thing you do right here I actually really approve of is once you drop this golden horn, you immediately go into lots of production. Because this is actually...
Because I think that one of the main strategies with this build is when I go to castle, I'm trying to spam him with Varangian guards.
Yes, exactly. So let's make sure we're ready to do that. You're adding more to gold, great. You're already on a lot of food, great. As you're aging up, which picking the wood villagers was the smart move, you have a lot of wood, you can use them to age up. You should have grabbed 2 food villagers and just started dropping all your production right now. Which I think you do in a second?
I think. Maybe. Let's see.
Either that or you use the villagers after they age up. But I want you to drop them now. So the second you're aging up, you're making units and you're going.
Okay.
Because that's your window, right? Your window is, I hit castle, and if you hit castle at the same time as him, you should outproduce him because of your cisterns. If he goes burger, okay, maybe. But he hasn't even started aging up yet. So you have this beautiful window of where you're going to have castle, men at arms, and you can upgrade these longbows real quick, and you have castle longbows, and you will be... Now you're doing it perfect. And you'll be in this amazing point. I wouldn't even drop the archery ranges. I would have just done pure Hungarian guard at the start.
Okay.
Because he's not even castle yet, right? Scouting's doing pretty well. You saw he has units. I would have brought him back around one more time to check. You hit castle, and it's go time, man. You're under the cisterns. I would have want you on Conscripto. You had it on the Dialectus for research. You need to be on Conscripto.
I did a Dialectus maybe to upgrade something.
Yeah, I think it was to upgrade, my guess was...
Let's see. I'm not sure.
Something. But you like... Oh, you gotta be on...
I put my attention about the abilities of the system.
Mm-hmm.
I put an attention.
And it's like, one way to do that is... What you'll see some players do, they'll put all... Even if it's not connected to anything, they'll put all of their research buildings under one cistern and put it on Dialectus and leave it there. And that's their research cistern. Like, they'll put a mill, a mining kit, like, they'll put everything right here, and that's their research one. And then they have one where all the military goes. That's their conscripto. Like, if they struggle to bounce back and forth, that's how you do it. Because here's your window. You've hit castle, he isn't. You have lots of food, lots of gold. It's go time. Also, really make sure you get horticulture. Because horticulture increases the amount of food your villagers gather, which means you get more olive oil. So really make sure you're getting horticulture upgrade.
As soon as I reach to Castle Age?
I would have got it in feudal first, and then get the one in castle as well.
Okay.
Because your farms are so important to your eco.
Okay.
And once again, you have 300 wood. I'm always adding farms whenever I can. That's the mindset of Biz. I'm adding farms whenever I can. You then double produce monks. I understand wanting to get the relics as you're against HRE. I would have done one monk at a time, because maximizing your production with Hungarians is really important here. Which is why, once again, I would have potentially done just 4 barracks at the start. And then if your initial push doesn't work, then you go ranged. Because you're just trying to take advantage of this moment right here.
Okay, another question about the rally points of the production buildings. I need to put the rally more in the front line or in the base?
I would have done it here, with the idea being is that you recognize this is attack time. Like, if you aged up and you're being pushed, I would have rallied, like, here. Because you're trying to build up as many units as you can before you have to fight. So the rally point depends on the position you're in. So if the position is, I'm the aggressor, I rally forward.
Okay.
I'm being defensive, I rally in base near units I want to protect. Because, once again, a few Hungarian guards are going to win this fight. This is all spearmen. He's even going second TC. He hasn't even started aging up yet. this is it. And we just wait. We wait. And we wait. And you scouted this. You know what he has. And we're waiting. And this unnecessary passivity is what really loses you this game. Because this is your moment right here before the HRE machine turns on. We also really want a blacksmith. A big thing about pushing in castle, if you're going to rush, is getting the arrow defense upgrade.
Yes.
Because if you get double arrow defense, so you have 6 arrow defense, you can survive under TCs way better because they do 8 damage. So instead of getting hit for 4 damage each time, they're getting hit for 2 damage each time, which is a huge difference. So really getting those arrow defense upgrades, if that's the only thing you get, that's huge if you're doing this castle rush right here.
Okay.
Make sure you upgrade everything, but it's just like the production. You just rallied up more Vangarian guards, but you have 4 in one and 3 in another. See how you could support 4 more production buildings right here.
Yes. Understand.
And it's just noticing your resources, looking at how much you're making, and adding more. But you got to go right now. Since we don't go, you get a lot of the rugs. This is great, but then he gets the age up. It's like even if you had pushed right now, this would have been perfect. Because you would have caught him. You could have sat outside his burger. He wouldn't be able to produce any units. You just sit outside of it. You burn it down. He gets no units out, and you win. But we're still waiting. Why do you think in the moment you didn't push?
I think that one of my thoughts about fighting in this game, like I've played on Age of 3, is trying to bulk my military and then attack.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the mindset of this game is just to attack with what you got, and maybe I don't realize that those units can survive longer than I think.
And
And that's it. I think I want to bulk the army before I attack, and not attack with only 5 Varangian guards, and don't thinking about and I'm not thinking about the damage that can do
it's not
with
just
those 5.
it's the pressure you put on your opponent. Like if you had showed up a 5 Hungarian guard, 10 spearmen aren't winning that. He runs away. You're rallying forward now, so you have more Hungarian guard coming. Even in the very early game, even if you rushed out a group of longbows and he has spearmen there, you just run away. Like the worst thing that you could do is just I just back up, and then but like a group of longbows early decimate his economy. An attack right hit castle ends the game. And you're right. So much of this game it's amazing how powerful a small group of units can be. Because if he has to leave his gold, that's really bad for him. If he can't go on food and he has to make farms, that's bad for him. Like, there's so many things you can do with just 3 or 4 units. And that's a good mindset shift to have. That's going to help you out a lot in this game.
I think that this is the biggest problem. I don't know how to maneuver the army efficiently, because I think that only a large group of army can do damage.
If your micro is, or your APM's a little low, I always advocate for micro the most. You have to decide what's your most important unit to micro. So like if you went to attack, what's your most important unit to micro? Well, it'd probably be your longbows.
Yes.
Because you don't want longbows shooting men at arms. We want them shooting spearmen, or you want them in this case shooting Landsknechts. So if you're to A move forward and you see Landsknechts, I would double tap on my longbows, hold shift, and just try to click every single Landsknecht. Because that's the most important thing. That's the highest value. So if you're ever fighting, always ask yourself, is there a high value thing I need to do? And if there isn't, if it's just they're fighting and you microing isn't going to have that much of an advantage, go back home and do eco stuff. Because you at this point you will often start forgetting to make villagers. Multiple times you will forget to make villagers from here on out. And honestly, it is always more important to make villagers than it is to do almost anything else.
Yes, I understand.
Cool. And also Golden Horn, make sure you rally. You add your Golden Horn to your hotkey production here. So I usually put all of mine on 4. And you want to add your Golden Horn to it just so if you make a rally point, the Golden Horn units move too.
Yes, I know. I forgot to put a rally point.
Yeah, happens. happens to the best of us all the time. Also, I don't think you connected your cisterns. 'Cause
Yes, I noticed that, and I think I just repair that
rough.
eventually.
Those small things add up. It sucks, but this game is still very winnable. What it really
Yes.
does come down to is when you start fighting, how do you react? So one, you know, you saw he was down here on deer and he ran away. Okay, that's fine. A big thing here is whenever you start to leave your base, I'm big on you got a wall, because what would end this game if he shows up with a group of men at arms and just slaughters your gold villagers. So when you came over here, always ask yourself, can I wall or tower? In this case, I would have walled from here to here.
Okay.
Okay. Um, Two, I do like how you do a scout run. You want to scout these outer resources. You want to see if he's on any of these. You can tell in the fog of war if he's on deer, because the deer will disappear. Same with the
Yeah, I
boar.
know.
Okay, cool.
I know. Yes.
So we're coming out. I like how you're still making units. Keep making units. Gotta remember to keep making villagers. We already stated that. But your numbers are still good. Your numbers are still good. The key here is before you attack, I would have brought the scout up just to see what you're walking up into. You don't want to attack blind whenever possible. So you want to keep the scout with the military. He runs up, and he's pure melee, and he has a lot of lancionettes. So his goal is pretty clear. What you can do is put your units in staggered formation to try to reduce the amount that the lancionettes do on AoE damage. But honestly, at this point, I would have taken all of my ranged, and as much as possible, should I target fire lancionettes, and back up. Like, just keep kiting. What you're doing here, very well. Keep kiting, keep kiting. Shoot, kite, shoot, kite, shoot. But those lancionettes can be really brutal. If you
I bought my own lens.
you got your own, which is great. At this point, the best counter lancionettes is mass. Ranged, which you don't have anymore, but you can get, or make a siege workshop and get like 2 or 3 mangonels.
Yes.
Mangonels shred lancionettes. And you have the gold for it. Like, at this point, you should have seen how much gold you have, and I would have, especially with all these relics you have, I would have halved my villagers on gold and gone to food, because the thing you really need is food. That's what's holding you back right now. And just made more units and get more on food, because the food's really holding you back. You also could have gotten a second mercenary house, because you have so much olive oil coming in at this point. But
yes,
time to fight again. And once again, you really got to send your scout forward before you fight. Because if you send your scout forward, you would have seen he's going pure lancionettes again, and he's going to start adding a mangonel. And not noticing that mangonel really, really hurt you. Another thing you can do, and this is very small, and once again, we can do this in a way that's pretty APM easy, is just take like 2 or 3 Vancarian guards and send them to resources. So for example, if you're sitting here waiting, just go, okay, I'm going to grab these 3, I'm going to shift click A, and A. I'm just sending them to all the golds.
yes.
And the idea being is, if they run into nothing, that's fine. But if they get they get here, okay, they'll stand here and guard this gold. Or I run into villagers, and now I'm killing villagers. And to kill Vancarian guards, he'd have to bring something over to kill them. And so, take small groups of units and just send them to resources you see on the map, and you'd be surprised what you run into. And you can forget about them. Just do shift-click A around. You can do it with archers, too. Like, a thing I like to do is, if I have a unit I don't really want anymore, like, I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna... I have a lot of these, I don't need them as much. I just send them around the outside of the map and see what I can catch. Yeah. Especially because he's not walling. Neither of you wall. You guys apparently don't like walling. And you can always pick more scouts. And then, once again, it's just sitting and waiting. You actually, I think, would have been better off if you had pushed him way earlier. And the reason I say that is you don't want him to build a Lanchnik mass, and what you did was just let him build that mass.
Yes.
If you had pushed right after you won, you would have arrived outside the burger, and then anytime he made one, you just catch it. Because they're really weak individually. The issue becomes when they become this big group.
Yes, I know.
And so, that's why I wanted to emphasize this game. I think this game is a great showing of how much passive play slows us down. You saw him on this. I would not have moved the whole military.
Yeah.
Once again, it's like, if he runs in here with a bunch of lancionettes, that kills your economy. If you had walls up, it would be different. But I would have just sent, 3 or 4 units. and just do little raids, that would have really slowed him down. But at this point, it's the things we've talked about. The lack of scouting made us realize you didn't see the siege, so when you fight, his siege kills you, and then he overruns you. My last question, though, is when you had the ability to age up, why didn't you choose to age up?
I think that because I noticed that he has an army, I put my focus on the battlefield and not about my eco and trying to age up.
Mm.
And also, as you can see, I try to get the most upgrades as I can to prepare for the battle.
Yeah.
And that's it. I don't think I had the thoughts of getting to the industrial age.
Yeah. If you have the chance to go Imperial, here's the question to ask yourself.
Imperial. I'm sorry, not
No,
industrial.
no, you're good.
Industrial is
Man,
no
if you
industrial is for the age 3.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
if you went to the industrial age, it'd be pretty crazy. And unfair. Imperial. If I get an oopsie Imperial, which means like I'm not planning to go in Imperial, but I happen to have the resources to go Imperial, I ask myself, could I survive if he pushes me? And you have a pretty military, and so at that point, I would have actually just gone for aging up. What they did being is once you upgrade these units, you probably win instantly. He also could go Imperial. He has a lot of resources that he's not spending very well, but it's an option to you. It wouldn't have been the worst option. A second thing you can always do in Castle is, if the game's going long, add a second TC. That's what he did, and you have 50 villagers, and he now has 84, which is a huge eco lead, even with your olive oil. But with Byzantine getting the passive stone, it's very common for a Byzantine player in mid to late Castle to add a second TC just because you have the stone for it.
How much do you think that I need to have a total of villagers in a single game?
If the game goes very late, you should try to get to 120 villagers.
120?
120. Really high level players do 130, but they do that because they don't need as much military. They're much more efficient. I just generally give the advice of 110 to 120 villagers is a really good amount. It usually means you can consistently produce out of 15 to 20 production buildings without stopping.
But do you think that as a Byzantine player with all the cistern
Yeah.
aura,
Still, yeah. If you can get there. Because here's the thing. If you get to 120 villagers and you find yourself stacking an insane amount of resources, just delete some and add more army. But you should never stop adding villagers until you hit that 200 pop cap, and then you'll realize, I don't need as many. You can delete them.
Okay.
But it's always better to have more eco. Because if you guys, here's the thing, if you guys were fighting a lot more, you both just kind of stood back and let things happen. But if you guys were constantly fighting, you would have no resources. You would not be able to keep up. At 50 villagers, you would be constantly running out of resources. It just happens that neither of you are fighting very much, which is why you guys end up banking so many resources. So he saw you coming in. There's a secret gold up here that you miss that he runs to. But you take this fight, and it's just pretty brutal. Once again, you do a great job kiting. But then he's going to hit you with the mangonel shots. And this is honestly the moment where, once again, you just killed all of his military. You got to go in.
Yes.
Next wave goes. And you're trying to just do your best to... And once again, he has no walls, so you can just run your Vengarian guards everywhere and just try to hunt villagers. And it would have probably worked out pretty well for you. But standing here, you're just asking for a mangonel shot to the face. But I do like this rotation. This is stuff you should do more. A big thing is taking, if you have a huge group of range, just running through the enemy's backline and just hunting villagers. It's actually very effective. Pop, 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 pop. Keep running. Don't chase. Just keep... Once you see that, just keep running. And you're just trying to pop as many villagers as you can.
As you can see, I'm also stacking my army. I'm not pushing.
Yeah, and you drop more production is great, but man, we just need to go. And once again, you don't have to take a big fight. That's a thing we need to break our mindset of. One, you would have won this. You could have rushed and killed everything here. But even then, like, a group of units into the base, a group of units into the wood line, a group of units over here for the gold. Like, just run around places and do damage. The thing you have over him is that you can produce way faster than him because of your cisterns. Use that advantage.
What do you think about using horses?
Say again?
What do you think about using horses as a Byzantine?
Um, Generally something you do in
Do
late
you
game.
think, do you think that the cataphract is
The
is
cataphract isn't very good. It's
isn't
it's
very good?
it's way too expensive and not that effective, honestly.
Okay.
Its only real use is the trample allows you to get to siege very quickly. So if they have a huge siege ball, you can use the trample to get there and kill the siege. Um,
Okay.
but honestly, I would really only go horseman in like Imperial, where going mass horseman is good to go attack economy.
Okay,
Um,
so basically what you're saying is I can produce maybe 5 cataphracts and spread them to the map and trying to harass him on a far
yeah,
eco.
yes, I like to use once castle the beginning of castle is over and you hit mid to late castle, knights become a lot worse because your opponent will have spears, they'll have crossbows, they'll have things that kill knights very quickly. So knights become less cost efficient. Knights become very good then as raiding. I like to use 1 or 2 knights to go check resources. Um, that's a much more effective thing because horsemen they can be jumped by villagers, but knights can't really get jumped by villagers and they can do a lot of damage. And then
Okay.
in late Imperial, when resources start to get low, like gold, horsemen are very good at just massing horsemen and rushing into the opponent's eco to hunt villagers.
Okay.
But Biz, your power is your Vangarian guards and your mass of mercs. So lean into that
Okay.
as much as possible. I like how you drop more mercenary houses. You have so much oil, olive oil. So just like using that and focusing on that. And where Biz becomes very hard to deal with is how they can just keep fighting and replenishing before you can. Like you might be able to win the first engagement against Byzantine or the second engagement Byzantine, but you're not winning the third or fourth because they're just outproducing you so much. That's their power.
Okay.
And you want to lean into that. And you're not leaning into that because every time you want to fight, you then sit back and let him replenish. That's where a lot of this is coming from.
I understand.
I mean, he even got like once again, he should not have got this up. This was very silly. And that's basically why he wins because he then goes pure Lanchinix. He upgrades them. You try to push in. He just wrecks you with siege, and then he's gonna walk in. And that paid off for him. Once again, your army was technically better than his, but the siege and being under the Elsbach just really ruined everything. And that's that match.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Um, no, I think that you managed to sum up all my defects on battle, and I'm try to fix them.
Yeah. Here's what I want to say. You know the build very well. You're executing the idea of the build. Like what resources you need, what I'm trying to do. Now you need to refine it and then be more aggressive. So really spend that wood, get lots of farms, make more production, and then try be more aggressive with your units. And that all comes from scouting, knowing what your opponent is doing, trying to take advantage of that. And if you do that, I think you're going to start seeing a lot of wins pretty quickly at Byzantine if you're able to execute that.
Okay. Another question. Beastie said recently that as a Byzantine, when you use your horseman very early in the game, it's very effective. What do you think about it?
He's not wrong. Horsemen in early game are really nice because one, you could force your opponent to go spears, which your longbows will just crush. And it's good for horsemen are good very early if you're trying to rush castle because you can attack resources and force them to chase you. It's like the English king. The point isn't to do damage. The point is to force a reaction and slow them down.
Okay,
If
so
you
how
have
do you think that should I combine this? Not combine, try to integrate with the specific build that I'm using.
You could try. So here's the question:
How?
Do you think you have the APM to keep horsemen alive and run them around while still executing your castle build?
Uh,
That's what's going to come
That's
into
a
play.
big question. That's a big question because one of the things that I wrote to you about my weaknesses is trying to combine and try to do 2 things about managing a battlefield and also managing my eco.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
and that comes from one, you just need reps. You just need to do it again and again and again. But two, I the advice I would give on that, I'm sorry I didn't touch that directly, But when it comes to how to get good at that, you need to kind of build a rotation of your mind of I'm doing this, and then I'm gonna flip over and do this, and go back and forth, back and forth. Um, and what you need to do is make sure you build a priority list in your mind. If I'm raiding with my horsemen, at that moment I have to pay attention to them because I don't want them to die. So I raid.
Yes.
They bring their villagers back. I shift click my horsemen to the corner, and now they're safe. So I'm gonna go back to my base. I'm gonna do what I need to do with my base. Okay, my
Okay.
base is good to go. I'm back to my horsemen. I'm doing another raid. And so the idea is identifying when I don't have to pay attention to my units anymore. They're okay. Or if they're units I'm going to sacrifice. Sometimes I'll send units in to raid. I'm like, they'll die, whatever. Like, it is what it is. They're not on the level of importance of things for me to do. They're not that high anymore. But it's learning what's the most important thing and then balancing when I cannot pay attention to something anymore. And then rotating through the things you need to do. And you'll get faster at them. Early on, it'll be slow. But it's just constantly asking yourself, do I need to pay attention to this right now? Do I need to watch my scout every second? Do I need to watch my horseman run to the corner or run away? No, I don't need to watch that. I can go back to my base and adjust my eco and do what I need to do there. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course.
Cool. Good question. Anything else?
No,
All right,
I
man.
think you answered all my questions, and thank you for this hour of coaching. I hope that I'll reach higher levels
I
as soon as possible.
I believe in you, man. Let me know how it goes, and of course, post any questions in the Discord or to me if you have any questions.